Up until this point, the Commandos had a pretty clear picture of what they were dealing with. They knew about the Sludge God, they knew about Leon and the Obsidian Group, and what the drilling operation had accidentally released. They had fought through the infected zone, survived the church, figured out who Gallagher was and why she was there. They understood the situation. And then Leon tells them what he actually needs them to do next. He needs them to go into a sludge-choked explosives factory in the middle of the infected zone and come back out with a very specific truck. Not supplies, not fuel, not information, a truck, one specific truck that Leon has already built something into and stored inside a factory that the sludge got to before anyone could move it somewhere safer. The Commandos probably had some questions about this. Leon probably did not answer all of them. This is High Octane, the mission where Project God Killer stops being a theory and becomes something real and physical that 4 mercenaries have to fight their way to through waves of everything the infected zone can throw at them. And the story of this location, what it was before the outbreak, why the God Killer truck ended up inside it, what it means that the sludge specifically wrapped its tendrils around it, and why getting that truck out alive mattered more than anyone fully explained to the people being asked to do it, is worth understanding properly. Because this is the turning point of the whole story. Before the outbreak, this facility was exactly what the name suggests, a place that manufactured and stored explosive materials. The kind of industrial operation kept on the edges of populated areas, far enough from everything else, that if something went wrong, the damage would stay contained, and it was not sitting in the infected zone by coincidence. The Obsidian Group's drilling operation needed explosives. Deep drilling operations use significant quantities of explosive material to break through rock formations far below the surface. A facility like this one was directly supplying that operation, connected to the chain of things that made the disaster possible before a single drop of sludge ever hit the surface. So the factory that helped create the apocalypse is the same factory housing the weapon meant to end it. The tools of the disaster and the tools of the salvation stored in the same building. The infected zone does that constantly. Layers things on top of each other in ways that feel almost deliberate. Like the world is trying to make a point about how connected the cause and the cure actually are in this story. Now here's the detail that changes how you see this whole mission. Leon built the God Killer truck before the Commandos ever showed up. Think about what that actually means. The Commandos were hired for a delivery job. They did not know about Project God Killer. They stumbled into this whole situation because a job went wrong and they got infected. But Leon was already building the weapon, already had the truck. Already had it stored in that factory, loaded with whatever he designed to destroy the Sludge God's source point. The Commandos are not the reason Project God Killer exists. They are the people Leon needed to retrieve it, protect it, and eventually use it. The plan was already running before they arrived. The truck was already built, already waiting, even while his company was falling apart around him, even while the cover-up was failing and the wall was going up and everything he had built was collapsing. Leon was in a factory building a weapon to kill a god. That is who he is. That is the quality that caused the disaster in the first place, and that is the same quality that gives humanity any chance at all of surviving it. He did not wait to see how bad it was going to get. He just started building. Now, here is something about the weapon itself that the game does not make a big announcement about, but that completely changes the weight of everything that happens during High Octane. Leon's weapon can only fire once, one shot, one chance, no reloading, no backup plan if something goes wrong. The weapon inside the God Killer truck is a single-use device designed to destroy the sludge God source point on one specific attempt, at one specific moment. If it fires and misses, it is over. If the truck gets destroyed before the weapon can be used, it is over. There is no version 2 sitting somewhere waiting to be built, no second attempt. Everything Leon has been working on, every mission the Commandos have run, every piece of the puzzle gathered across months of fighting through the infected zone, all of it comes down to one shot from one truck. And right now that truck is sitting in a sludge-choked factory wrapped in tendrils. Think about what that means when you're standing outside the factory looking at everything between you and the weapon. Every zombie is not just an obstacle. Every tendril blocking the road is not just an environmental hazard. Every wave that hits the truck during extraction is a potential end to the only plan humanity has. This is not just a difficult mission. This is the most important retrieval job in human history. By the time the Commandos arrive at the factory, the infected zone has done its work on the surrounding area. Roads blocked, environment transformed, everything dark and wrong and belonging to something that was never meant to be here. Getting through requires the Maverick, a winch-equipped car that spawns somewhere in the map at a random location. Without it, the barriers blocking the approach cannot be cleared. The Commandos track it down, blast through a sludge barricade on the road with explosive charges, get back in the vehicle, and start driving toward the factory, and then they see the road. The entire stretch between the barricade and the factory is lined with tendrils, not a few scattered growths on the edges of the path, the whole road. The tendril after tendril blocking the way forward, growing out of the corrupted ground on both sides and reaching across the path like the infected zone deliberately built a corridor of obstacles between the Commandos and the building at the end of it. And when you think about it from a lore perspective, maybe it did. We talked in the Sludge God video about how the corruption moves with purpose rather than spreading randomly. It terraforms, it reshapes, it responds to things. A road lined wall to wall with tendrils leading to a factory containing the one weapon capable of destroying the Sludge God source point is not random environmental decoration. The infected zone built a gauntlet not because the Sludge God consciously planned one out, but because the corruption responds to threats the way a body responds to a foreign object automatically, wrapping around the thing it wants to contain and making it as hard as possible to reach. The Commandos shoot through the tendrils and keep moving, and eventually they pull up to the factory. And there it is, the God Killer truck, sitting exactly where Leon said it would be, wrapped in tendrils, every single one of them holding that specific vehicle. Not the other equipment in the factory, not the other vehicles scattered around the space. The God Killer truck held by the sludge in a way that goes beyond what normal corruption spread looks like something in the infected zone knew what it was holding and had no intention of letting it go. The getting the truck free requires the EMP device that Leon attached to it before storing it there. An electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt the corruption and break the tendrils' hold on the vehicle. But the EMP needs power, and finding a battery somewhere in a factory full of sludge and homo mortis and tendrils blocking every path while waves keep coming is exactly as unpleasant as it sounds. The Commandos find the battery, get it to the device, fire the EMP, the tendrils release, the God Killer truck is free, and now the hardest part starts because the Commandos have to get it out alive. The truck has its own health. If the infected destroy it, the mission fails. The weapon is gone. The only shot humanity had is sitting destroyed in an explosives factory with no backup coming. The what hits the truck during the extraction is unlike anything the Commandos have faced up to this point in the campaign. Every type of homo mortis the infected zone has available, wave after wave, from every direction, all of it aimed at one vehicle that needs to survive a 3-minute timer. 3 minutes, in the middle of the infected zone with everything trying to destroy the only thing that can save the world. 3 minutes feels like forever, and here's the thing about that extraction from a lore perspective. The Horde is not responding to the Commandos, it is responding to the truck, to something that the corruption identified as a threat and hit with everything available in the area. This is the infected zone's immune response working at full capacity. The Sludge God does not consciously strategize against Leon's plan, but the corruption responds to threats automatically, the way a body responds to something foreign that has no business being inside it. The God Killer truck moving through the infected zone triggered that response, and everything the sludge had in the area came running. The Commandos hold it. 4 people with guns and vehicle weapons and whatever they managed to scavenge, standing between the infected zone's full response and the one thing that has to survive it. 3 minutes, and then it is over. The truck is alive. The weapon is intact. Project God Killer has its vehicle, and the story shifts in a way it has not shifted before. Everything up to this point was establishing the situation, surviving, gathering pieces, the figuring out what Leon was building and what role the Commandos played in it. High Octane changes all of that. From this moment forward, the Commandos are not just survivors, they are the people carrying the only plan that has a chance of ending this. Moving toward a specific conclusion with something real and irreplaceable to show for everything they have been through. The factory that helped create the disaster housed the weapon meant to fix it. The weapon can only fire once, and the Commandos just fought through a tendril-lined gauntlet, a sludge-choked factory, and 3 minutes of everything the infected zone had to offer to make sure that one shot still has a chance of landing. That is High Octane. The mission that put the weapon in the Commandos' hands and turned a survival story into an endgame. Next map we are covering Demon Bait, the mission where Leon asks the Commandos to do something genuinely uncomfortable with everything they have learned about the infected zone, using the Sludge God's own creatures as tools, and what that reveals about how the corruption actually controls what it controls. Subscribe so you do not miss it, and drop a comment. Do you think the sludge specifically wrapping itself around the God Killer truck was a coincidence, or do you think the infected zone knew exactly what it was holding? Because I do not think tendrils wrapped themselves around one specific vehicle in a factory full of equipment by accident. Tell me what you think.